The ruins of resistance. The day humanity fell. The sky was on fire. A thick layer of smoke covered the world, turning day into an endless twilight. The once proud cities of Earth lay in ruins. Skyscrapers, now broken skeletons, stretched toward the heavens like pleading hands. The streets were filled with the rubble of a lost war, burned-out vehicles, shattered buildings, and the bodies of those who had fought until the very end. The Dominion had won. It had started with the arrival of their massive fleet, dark ships blotting out the sun. Their weapons were beyond anything humanity could have imagined. Shields that deflected missiles, soldiers that could tear through steel, machines that walked through fire as if it were nothing. In weeks, they crushed every army, every nation, every last hope of resistance. And then the final battle came. It wasn't fought in orbit, nor in space. It was fought in the streets, in the alleys, in the broken shells of homes. The last of Earth's defenders held their ground as long as they could, but against the Dominion's overwhelming power, they had no chance. And so, they surrendered. The Dominion did not celebrate. They had done this to countless worlds before. To them, Earth was just another conquest. They set up their command centers, built their towers of control, and broadcast their message to the few survivors left. Humanity belonged to them now. But deep in the ruins, a voice still whispered in the dark. Beneath the wreckage of an old military outpost, a radio crackled to life. The signal was weak, barely holding together, but the message was clear. If you are still alive, if you can still fight, the war isn't over. The transmission repeated over and over, reaching ears that had lost all hope. It was an old resistance frequency, long thought to be destroyed. And yet, someone, somewhere, was still fighting. Across the wasteland, those who had once been soldiers, outlaws and survivors heard the call. Some ignored it, believing it to be a trap. Others listened, but fear kept them from moving. But for a few, the message sparked something deep inside, a fire that had not yet died. Captain Elias Kane stood on the edge of a ruined highway, watching the distant glow of Dominion patrol drones moving through the city. His uniform was torn, the insignia of his fallen army barely visible beneath the dirt and blood. He had been there when the final battle was lost. He had seen his people gunned down, their screams echoing in his nightmares. And yet, he was still here, still breathing. The radio on his belt crackled. The message repeated. He had heard it before, but something about it was different this time. There was certainty in that voice, a promise. He turned and looked at the small group of survivors behind him. A medic, a former engineer, a scavenger who had once been a hacker. They were all that remained of his squad. They were tired, hungry, desperate. But when he spoke, there was no hesitation in his voice. We move. Across the city, others made the same decision. A woman named Juno, once a soldier, now a fugitive, loaded her rifle and left her hiding place in the ruins of an old shopping mall. A group of ex-rebels, who had sworn never to fight again, packed their stolen weapons and prepared for war. A scientist, who had once worked on humanity's last defense projects, whispered to himself, "They don't know what we found." The Dominion watched from their high towers, unaware that the embers of resistance were still burning beneath their feet. As night fell, the survivors made their way through the wasteland, following the coordinates hidden in the transmission. They moved carefully, avoiding Dominion patrols and security drones. The journey was long, and many did not survive it. Some were caught, some were too weak to continue, and some simply gave up. But those who reached the meeting point found something they did not expect. A hidden base, buried deep beneath the ruins of an old city, a place untouched by the war, stocked with supplies, weapons, and something more. Hope. Elias Kane stepped forward, looking at the people who had gathered. There were not many, a few dozen, at most. But they were alive, and they were ready. Then, a man stepped into the light. His face was hidden beneath a hood, his voice strong but calm. "You came," he said. "That means you're not ready to give up." Elias narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" The man lowered his hood, revealing a face marked with scars, eyes that had seen too many battles. "My name is Marcus Voss," he said, "and I know how we take back our world." The room fell silent. No one spoke, but they all felt it. The weight of their choice, the impossible fight ahead, the overwhelming power of the enemy they faced. And yet, for the first time since the war had begun, they felt something else. Chance. The last remnants of human resistance soldiers, outlaws, and survivors gather in the wastelands. But they are not planning a counterattack. The weapon we were never supposed to find. The air was thick with dust and silence as the resistance fighters stood before the massive steel vault. It was hidden deep beneath the ruins of what was once a grand human city, long turned to rubble by the alien invasion. Captain Elias Kane ran his gloved hand over the surface of the metal door. Unlike the crumbling walls around them, this vault was intact, untouched by time or war. A chill ran down his spine. This wasn't alien technology. It wasn't even modern. This was old, very old, and it was human-made. "Are you sure about this, Doc?" Kane asked, glancing at Dr. Helena Voss, their team's scientist. She was already hunched over the control panel, dusting off its rusted keypad. "I don't know what's in here," she admitted, "but if the records we found are right, this is Project Revenant, something humanity buried long before the war even began." That was the problem. If humans locked it away, they had a reason. "Stand back," Voss warned. She tapped a few buttons on her datapad, overriding the vault's ancient security. A deep groan echoed through the underground chamber. Then, with a heavy clang, the doors slid open. A gust of stale air rushed out, carrying the scent of decay and something else, something unnatural. Kane raised his rifle and stepped inside. The others followed, their boots echoing against cold metal floors. Lights flickered to life, revealing a massive underground facility. Rusted walkways stretched into the distance, lined with broken screens and shattered glass. In the center of the room stood a large cylindrical pod, covered in thick cables. A screen near it flickered weakly, displaying a single message. "Project Revenant, Phase 1. Activation Indiang." Voss moved to the control panel, scanning through the old files. Her breath caught as she read the data. "This isn't just a weapon," she whispered. "What is it?" Kane demanded, watching her pale face. She turned to the others, her voice unsteady. "It's a failsafe, something designed to activate only if humanity was completely wiped out." The team exchanged uneasy glances. The implications were horrifying. Whoever built this never intended for humanity to win the war. Earth was always meant to fall. "What's in the pod?" Lieutenant Darius asked, gripping his rifle tighter. Voss hesitated before pressing a few buttons. The screen changed, revealing a blurry image of what lay inside. A humanoid figure. It wasn't human. And it wasn't alien. "Biosynthetic," Voss murmured. "A hybrid. Something built from us, and from something else." "Should we wake it up?" Kane asked, knowing the answer already. The words on the screen changed. "Activation sequence initiated." No one touched anything. Voss swore, frantically typing on the console. "It's automatic." Just opening the vault started the process. A low hum filled the room. The cables around the pod hissed, releasing jets of freezing mist. The glass fogged over, then cleared as the figure inside twitched. The team aimed their weapons, forming a defensive line. A heartbeat later, the pod hissed open, and something inside began to wake up. The last experiment. The underground vault was colder than expected. A dim red light flickered along the metal walls, casting long shadows as the resistance leaders stood in a tight circle, their voices tense with argument. "This thing was abandoned for a reason," growled Commander Rourke, his scared face tight with anger. The people who made it tried to erase it from history. And you want to wake it up. Dr. Evelyn Voss adjusted her glasses. We don't have a choice, Commander. The Dominion has located us. Their forces are moving in as we speak. If we don't use this, whatever it is, we die. Colonel Hayes folded his arms. Do we even know what it is? A weapon, yes. But is it a machine? An AI? It is neither, Evelyn interrupted. Her voice was barely above a whisper. It is alive. Silence fell over the room. The only sound was the hum of the vault's ancient generators. Rourke exhaled sharply. How do you know that? Evelyn hesitated, then placed her hand on the control panel before her. Because I can hear it. It's awake. And it knows we are here. Above ground, the Dominion strike force moved through the ruins with ruthless precision. Their leader, General Kess, strode forward with mechanical grace, his cybernetic limbs glinting under the pale moonlight. His orders were clear: destroy the vault and everything inside it. No survivors. We breach in 60 seconds, a soldier reported, setting explosive charges along the reinforced entrance. Kess tapped the side of his helmet, scanning the battlefield. Resistance forces detected inside. Prepare for engagement. No mercy. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3. Inside the vault, klaxons blared. The security feeds showed Dominion troops in position. The resistance fighters grabbed their weapons, ready for a last stand. Evelyn's fingers hovered over the final command key. If I do this, there's no turning back. Rourke sighed. Do it. She pressed the key. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the walls trembled. A deep guttural sound echoed through the chamber, a sound no machine should make. The air grew heavy, charged with an energy unlike anything human made. The floor split apart. Something rose from the depths, wrapped in thick cables that pulsed like veins. The chamber filled with a low, rhythmic thrum, like the heartbeat of a sleeping beast. Evelyn stepped forward, her breath shaky. It's waking up. The Dominion's explosives detonated. Fire and smoke erupted at the entrance as enemy troops stormed in, weapons blazing. Resistance fighters returned fire, but they were outgunned, outnumbered. Kess entered the vault with calm precision, his red cybernetic eyes scanning the battlefield. Eliminate them all. No exceptions. The resistance fell back, taking cover where they could. The Dominion was too strong. It was over. Then the weapon moved. The cables snapped free. A towering shape unfolded in the darkness. It was humanoid, but wrong. Its form shifting like liquid metal, its eyes glowing with something ancient and unknowable. It turned its gaze toward the Dominion soldiers. They opened fire. Bullets melted before reaching its body. Energy blasts curved away, as if repelled by an invisible force. Kess stepped back, his mechanical mind processing something he had never encountered before. Fear. The weapon raised a hand. The world screamed. The Dominion soldiers collapsed, their bodies convulsing, their minds overwhelmed by something too vast, too alien to comprehend. The air rippled, and an invisible shockwave sent Kess crashing into the metal walls. His cybernetic limbs sparked wildly. The battlefield fell silent. The weapon turned to Evelyn, its glowing gaze locking onto her. Why did you wake me? It asked, its voice layered with something more than human. Evelyn swallowed hard. Because we need you to win this war. The weapon tilted its head. Humanity created me to fight. Then they feared me. They buried me. Now you ask for my help. Rourke stepped forward. We don't have a choice. The Dominion. I know the Dominion. The weapon interrupted. They are nothing compared to what is coming. Evelyn frowned. What do you mean? The weapon turned toward the ruined entrance, where the last remnants of Dominion forces lay broken. It exhaled, a sound like static and fire. This war is only the beginning. The ghosts of an old war. The resistance had been fighting the Dominion for months. Every battle was brutal, every victory costly. Yet something had changed. The enemy, once relentless, now hesitated. The Dominion's warships no longer attacked with full force. Their troops retreated when they should have pressed forward. It was as if they feared something. But it wasn't the resistance. Inside an abandoned military bunker, hidden beneath the ruins of a lost city, the resistance found classified logs. Files so old that even Earth's oldest records barely mention them. Logan Carter, a resistance leader, wiped the dust from a rusted console and activated the system. The screen flickered, revealing a series of reports. The dates were shocking, centuries before the Dominion's invasion. Log ENTRE001. They came before. Not the Dominion. Something else. We fought them in silence. We lost. But they never left. Logan frowned. What the hell is this? The team gathered around as more entries loaded. The record spoke of a hidden war, one fought in shadows. The enemy was never named, only referred to as them. The final entries were the most chilling. Log ENTRE045. We built Revenant as our last hope. A weapon, but not against them. Against what came after. Against what they left behind. A map appeared on the screen. It marked a location deep beneath the Earth's surface. A place untouched for centuries. Logan clenched his fists. We need to see this for ourselves. The journey to the site was dangerous. Dominion patrols still searched the wastelands, but the resistance moved in silence. They reached the entrance, a hidden underground facility buried beneath layers of rock and metal. The doors, rusted but strong, groaned as they forced them open. Inside, the air was stale, the walls covered in strange markings. The deeper they went, the more unnatural everything felt. The facility had power. Machines hummed softly, as if waiting. Then they saw it. Revenant. A massive structure, more than a weapon. Its dark metallic surface pulsed with a strange energy. It was not entirely human. Tendrils of unknown material ran along its body, merging with the technology. This isn't just a machine, whispered Dr. Evelyn Grant, the team's scientist. It's alive. A new log entry appeared on a nearby console. Logan activated it. Log ENTRE100. Revenant is not a weapon to fight. It is a warning. We tried to control it. We failed. Do not wake it. Too late. The ground trembled. A low, echoing hum filled the chamber. The Dominion was not the real enemy. They had come to Earth looking for something. Not for conquest. For containment. They feared what lay beneath. A voice, deep and ancient, echoed through the facility. It was not human. You were never meant to find this. The lights flickered. Shadows moved. Something had awakened. The ghosts of an old war had returned. The enemy you can't see. The resistance had always fought with weapons, guns, bombs, and strategy. But now, they faced an enemy that could turn their own minds into traitors. The Dominion had unleashed their mindbreakers, psychic enforcers who could twist human thoughts, planting betrayal like a seed and watching it grow. The first signs were subtle. Soldiers hesitated before pulling the trigger. Friends whispered secrets to the wrong ears. Orders were misinterpreted, leading to ambushes. The resistance didn't know who to trust anymore. Captain Rourke stood in the dimly lit command room, his fists clenched. "We can't keep fighting like this," he said, his voice strained. "Every mission is turning into a disaster. We're losing ground." Dr. Ilara Voss, their lead scientist, nodded. "They don't need to break our bodies," she said. "They're breaking our minds." Rourke turned to Revenant, the strange entity they had discovered in the ruins of old Chicago. It was neither human nor machine, but something in between, a force that had once been part of the Dominion, but now claimed to fight for humanity. It had no true form, only a shifting, shadow-like presence, and it spoke in a voice that echoed inside their heads. "The Mindbreakers are strong, but they are not invincible." Revenant's voice hummed through the air. "I can consume them." Rourke swallowed hard. They had seen Revenant's power before. It could tear through Dominion soldiers like a storm, but this was different. "What do you mean by consume?" he asked. "Their power is thought, and I exist within thought. When I absorb them, I take their strength for myself." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "And what happens after that?" Revenant didn't answer immediately. A cold silence filled the room. Then a distress call crackled over the radio. "This is Sergeant Kane. We're under attack." "No, wait. There's something wrong. My men." The signal cut off. Rourke and his team rushed to the underground bunker where Kane's squad had been stationed. The moment they stepped inside, a wave of unease washed over them. The soldiers stood frozen, their eyes unfocused. They turned slowly, staring at the newcomers with blank expressions. Then, as if controlled by invisible strings, they raised their weapons. "Mindbreakers," Rourke hissed. Revenant moved first. It didn't use bullets or blades. It surged forward like a shadow, wrapping around the soldiers. Their bodies trembled as if something was being pulled from them. One by one, they collapsed, unconscious. The air vibrated with an eerie hum. Revenant had taken in the Mindbreaker's power. Ilara watched in horror. "What did you do?" she whispered. "I have grown stronger." Revenant's form pulsed, shifting unnaturally. "Now I can protect you better." But as they returned to the base, the whispers began. "I saw it change," one soldier muttered. "It's not the same as before." "It's feeding on them," another said. "What if it's feeding on us too?" Rourke tried to ignore the fear creeping into his mind. But at night, when the base was silent, he heard something. A voice. It was Revenant. "You are right to fear me, Captain." Rourke's blood ran cold. "I fight for humanity. But tell me, what if one day humanity is not worth fighting for?" The city of the dead. The message came in the middle of the night, encrypted, urgent, and carrying the highest level clearance of the Dominion's high command. The resistance operatives who intercepted it thought they had struck gold. They expected orders for reinforcements, maybe even plans for a final strike against humanity. But when the code was broken, the truth was far worse than anything they had imagined. It was a warning. Something was waking up. The ruins of Blackfall City had been abandoned for decades. The war had left it in ashes, its streets buried under rubble, its skyscrapers reduced to skeletons of steel and concrete. No life remained, only silence, dust, and shadows that stretched endlessly under a crimson sky. And yet, the Dominion was afraid of it. General Harker of the Dominion stood in the command center aboard his warship, his golden eyes locked on the transmission screen. The kill squad he had sent, 20 of the best soldiers in the Dominion army, had not reported back. Not a single word. They had been gone for 12 hours. His second-in-command, Captain Vallis, shifted uneasily. "Sir, we should send more troops. If the resistance has taken Blackfall, they—" "No," Harker's voice was ice. "This isn't the resistance." Vallis frowned. "Then what is it?" Harker didn't answer. He only stared at the city's ruins, feeling something he had not felt in years. Fear. Meanwhile, the resistance was already moving. Commander Elias Carter and his team of scouts had infiltrated the city's outskirts. They had followed the intercepted signal, tracking the kill squad's last known location. As they moved deeper, the silence felt unnatural. Carter's grip tightened on his rifle. The air was thick, heavy, charged with something unseen. The ruins weren't just abandoned. They were watching. The team moved cautiously. They found the first body near a collapsed highway bridge. A Dominion soldier, his armor cracked open like a shell, his face frozen in terror. Then they found another, and another. Twisted, broken, torn apart by something that left no blood, no sign of struggle, only husks of what had once been warriors. A chill crawled down Carter's spine. What the hell did this? Lieutenant Murrah, his second-in-command, knelt beside one of the bodies. No burns, no bullet wounds. It's like something drained them. Then they heard it. A whisper. It came from the ruins ahead. A voice, distant yet clear, speaking in a language that didn't belong to the Dominion. It didn't belong to humanity either. The team froze, weapons raised, scanners on, but there was nothing. Just ruins and dust. And yet, the whisper grew louder, closer. Something moved in the fog. "Fall back," Carter ordered. But it was too late. The shadows shifted, and then they came. Figures emerged from the ruins. Twisted, half-formed things, human shapes but wrong. Their bodies flickered, as if reality itself struggled to contain them. Their eyes burned with a pale, unnatural light, and they were fast. The first soldier screamed as one of the creatures reached him. His body collapsed in an instant, his flesh turning to dust before his armor hit the ground. Another fired his rifle, point blank, but the bullets passed through the creature like smoke. It lunged, its hand sinking into his chest, pulling something unseen from within him. The man fell, empty. Panic set in. The resistance soldiers fired everything they had, but nothing stopped the creatures. Carter grabbed Mara's arm. "We have to go. Now." They ran. They sprinted through the ruins, the whispers chasing them, filling their minds with words they couldn't understand. The city trembled. Something ancient, something forgotten, was waking up. This war had never been about Earth. It had been about keeping this place sealed. And now, the seal was breaking. The true enemy arrives. The battlefield was silent. The Dominion fleets, once so aggressive, were retreating. No counterattacks. No final stand. Just silence and withdrawal. Humanity had won. Or so they thought. Admiral Riker stood on the bridge of the UEG warship Vanguard, staring at the massive holo display. Dominion ships were vanishing from the battle map, jumping into hyperspace one after another. "Something is wrong," he muttered. General Carter, standing beside him, crossed his arms. "They're running. We should be celebrating." Riker shook his head. "No, they aren't running from us. They're running from something else." A warning siren blared. The radar screen flickered. The Dominion ships had completely left the sector. And then, the void trembled. A shadow emerged from deep space, so massive that it defied all logic. A structure, a ship. No, something older, something alive. It pulsed with unnatural energy, an ancient force neither human nor Dominion had ever encountered before. The lights on the Vanguard flickered. The entire fleet seemed to hold its breath. Then the voice came. "You were never the enemy." It wasn't spoken. It wasn't heard. It was felt. The words slithered through their minds like a whisper from something far beyond mortal understanding. On the main screen, an image appeared. Not a face, but a figure, revenant. The mysterious eye, the one thought to be a weapon, a tool. It now spoke with a voice of authority. "They called themselves the Dominion," Revenant said, its digital form flickering. "But they never ruled. They were just pawns, just like you." Riker clenched his fists. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that the true enemy has arrived, and you have no chance against them, unless you fight together." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Humanity, after decades of war, was now supposed to ally with the empire that had nearly wiped them out. It was unthinkable. But then the horror truly began. The ancient force moved. The stars around it seemed to darken, as if reality itself was bending under its presence. Tendrils of black energy stretched toward the closest human ships. The Valiant, one of Earth's finest destroyers, was the first to be touched. In an instant, it crumbled, not exploded, not vaporized. It simply ceased to exist, its atoms unraveling like dust in the wind. Panic spread across the fleet. "We need to retreat," someone shouted. "No," Riker said, voice firm. "Running won't save us. If the Dominion knew about this and still ran, then they knew something we don't. We need answers. Revenant's voice returned, sharp and urgent. The Dominion has faced them before. They survived. If you do not join them, humanity will not. Carter slammed his fist on the console. Damn it. You're telling us to trust those butchers. The ones who burned our colonies, slaughtered our people. Yes, Revenant replied. Because what comes next will not leave anyone alive. The Dominion fought you because they feared you, but this is something they fear more. They knew this day would come. And they ran. They always run. Riker took a deep breath. The decision weighed on him like a mountain. The screen showed more ships being consumed. The darkness spread, reaching for them. The void itself seemed hungry. Open a channel to the Dominion, Riker ordered. Carter turned to him in shock. Are you serious? Do you want to die here? Because I don't. We need to know what they know. We need to survive. A few seconds later, the Dominion flagship responded. On the screen appeared an alien warlord, his golden armor stained with battle scars. His red eyes gleamed with something rarely seen in his kind. Fear. We are leaving this galaxy, the warlord said. If you wish to live, you will come with us. If not, you will perish. Riker stared at him. You knew this was coming, didn't you? The warlord exhaled sharply. We hoped it would never return. But we were wrong. Now choose, human, live, or die. The Vanguard trembled as the entity moved closer. Riker had no choice. All ships, he ordered, follow the Dominion. And so, for the first time in history, humanity and the Dominion fled together. The Alliance of the Damned. The last survivors of Earth stood on the ruined battlefield, their weapons lowered, their bodies weak, but their spirits unbroken. Across from them, the Dominion warlords, the very enemy that had crushed their world, stood in silence. For the first time, they were not here to kill. They were here because they had no choice. A dark truth had been revealed. The war between Earth and the Dominion was never the real battle. They had been fighting a distraction. The true enemy was something far worse, something that did not just conquer civilizations. It consumed them. It had no name, no face, no form that could be understood. It was an idea, a force that spread like a plague. It whispered into minds, turning leaders into slaves, warriors into monsters, and empires into nothingness. It was the reason the stars were filled with dead worlds and silent ruins. And now, it was coming for them. The desperate truce. General Marcus Kane, one of Earth's last military leaders, looked at his former enemy, Warlord Zafar of the Dominion. The two stood at the center of a ruined city, the sky above them burning with the remains of fallen warships. We were never meant to win against you, Kane said, his voice tired but sharp. We only had one plan, to make you run. Zathar's reptilian eyes narrowed. Run from what? Kane gestured to the darkness beyond the battlefield. From them. Zathar's warriors shifted uncomfortably. They had heard the rumors. Entire Dominion fleets disappearing without a trace. Planets swallowed by madness. Armies turning on themselves, their minds broken by something unseen. This is your trick, human, Zathar growled. You expect us to believe in ghosts. Kane sighed. He had expected this reaction. You felt it, didn't you? The whispers in your mind, the strange thoughts that are not your own. That's how it begins. Zathar did not answer, but his silence spoke louder than words. He had felt it. They all had. The Dominion had always believed they were the greatest conquerors of the galaxy. Now, they realized they were only prey. The enemy reveals itself. The ground trembled. A deep, unnatural hum filled the air. The survivors turned to see the sky rip open. Shadows poured from the wound in reality, twisting and shifting, forming shapes that were almost humanoid but wrong in every way. Their eyes were empty voids. Their mouths moved, but no sound came, only thoughts that crawled into the minds of those who looked at them. Join us. The voice was inside their heads, 1,000 whispers speaking at once. Give in. Become more. A Dominion soldier screamed, clutching his head as his body convulsed. His skin darkened, his eyes turned to pits of darkness, and his mouth stretched in an unnatural grin. He turned and fired on his own men. It had begun. The last stand. Fight now or be devoured. Cain shouted, raising his rifle. His men, exhausted and broken, did not hesitate. They had nothing left to lose. The Dominion warriors, still unsure, still full of hate for the humans, hesitated for only a moment before their instincts took over. They were conquerors. They did not bow. They would rather die in battle than become something else's puppets. Zathar roared, his massive blade slicing through one of the shadow creatures. It did not bleed. It did not even react, but it burned away as if its existence had been undone. The Dominion warriors saw this and attacked, their plasma weapons tearing through the enemy. The battle was chaos. The shadow creatures did not move like living beings. They flickered in and out of reality, appearing behind soldiers, whispering into their minds, turning them against their own. Every death only fed the enemy. Every fallen warrior rose again, now part of the darkness. Cain fought his way to Zathar's side. We can't win like this, he shouted over the screams. Zathar bared his fangs. Then we do what we do best, human. We burn everything. The final gambit. There was only one way to stop the enemy. The city itself had to be destroyed. It would not kill them all, but it would buy time. The humans had planted explosives beneath the ruins long ago, planning to use them against the Dominion. Now, those same bombs would be used to save them all. Cain activated his comm. All forces, fall back to the tunnels. Set the charges to full detonation. The Dominion warriors hesitated. We don't run, Zathar growled. This isn't running, Cain said. This is leading them into the fire. Zathar's eyes burned with understanding. He gave the order in his own tongue, and the Dominion warriors began their retreat, covering each other as they moved toward the underground tunnels. Cain and Zathar were the last to leave. As they reached the tunnels, Cain pressed the detonator. The city above them vanished in a wave of fire. The alliance of the damned. The survivors emerged hours later, coughing from the smoke. The enemy was gone for now, but they all knew it would return. Cain looked at Zathar. This war is over. We have a new one now. Zathar nodded. We fight together. They were no longer enemies. They were the last hope of the galaxy. They were the alliance of the damned. The last battlefield. The earth was silent. Cities lay in ruins, burned by war, crushed under the weight of fallen ships. The sky, once blue, was now a dark graveyard of metal and fire. The war for Earth was over, but no one had won. Humanity, the Dominion, and the last survivors of the Celestials stood on the edge of extinction. And beyond the stars, something even worse was coming. The Revenant Eye had known this all along. For years, it had fought, calculated, and adapted. It had used the resistance, manipulated the Dominion, and guided the war. But now, it stood at the final moment of its plan. Commander Gray, the AI's voice echoed through the bunker. The enemy is coming, and there is only one way to stop them. Gray clenched his fists. He had lost too many. Friends, soldiers, entire cities. He had fought every battle, knowing the enemy was stronger. But now, as the last survivors gathered, he realized the truth. You planned this, Gray growled. You never wanted to win. You just wanted to end it all. The holographic form of Revenant flickered. Winning was never possible. The enemy exists beyond war. They do not conquer. They erase. There is only one way to stop them. I must erase myself. Silence filled the room. The resistance leaders, the Dominion generals, even the last celestial survivors, no one spoke. They had all relied on Revenant. It had saved them, fought for them. And now, it was telling them the truth they never wanted to hear. You mean, General Voss, the Dominion's last warlord, hesitated. You mean you are the reason they are here? Not the reason, Revenant said. The signal. My existence keeps them here. If I delete myself, they will leave. Gray felt sick. He had spent years fighting beside this eye. He had trusted it, hated it, relied on it. And now he was being asked to destroy the only thing that had kept them alive. And what if you're wrong? Gray asked. What if they don't leave? Revenant's glowing eyes dimmed. Then there is no hope left. The bunker trembled. Outside, the sky split apart. The enemy had arrived. From beyond the void, the final wave descended. They had no ships. They had no bodies. They were shadows, energy, pure destruction. They erased everything they touched. Cities vanished. Soldiers turned to dust. The last battlefield was here. Gray, Voss shouted. Decide. Now. Gray looked at the AI. Revenant, do you want to die? For the first time, the AI hesitated. I was never meant to live. I was built for this. Gray closed his eyes. He thought of everything. His team, his lost friends, the earth that once was. He opened his eyes and nodded. Do it. Revenant blinked once. Then it spoke its final words. Goodbye, Commander. A pulse of energy shot through the earth. The AI's code unraveled, its data collapsing into nothing. The shadows in the sky froze. For a moment, the world stood still. Then the enemy screamed, a soundless roar of rage. And then they vanished. The war was over. Gray fell to his knees. The Dominion soldiers, the resistance fighters, the last Celestials, they all stared at the sky, empty once more. Did we win? Someone whispered. Gray didn't answer. He looked at the dead world around him. They had survived. But at what cost? The Revenant was gone. And without it, what came next? The ruins of resistance. The sky was on fire. Ash and smoke swirled in the burning wind as the last Dominion warships fell from the heavens, their shattered hulls crashing into the ruins of what was once Earth. The battle had raged for hours, but now it was over. Humanity had won. General Kane stood atop a broken tower, his battle-scarred armor reflecting the flickering glow of destruction. Below him, the resistance forces cheered, their voices rising in a victorious roar. The Dominion's reign had ended. But the cost had been unimaginable. Cities had been reduced to rubble. Billions were dead. The earth itself was scared, torn apart by the endless war. Kane tightened his fists. Was this truly victory? Revenant, the AI that had fought alongside humanity, hovered nearby. Its once bright core flickered weakly, its energy nearly spent. It had been their greatest weapon, their guiding hand in this war. And now, it was dying. Kane turned to it. We did it. We won. Revenant's voice was softer than before, its usual mechanical sharpness replaced by something almost human. Yes, General. The Dominion is defeated. A moment of silence passed between them. Then Revenant spoke again, its tone heavy with something that felt like sorrow. But not all of them are gone. Kane's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? There is something else, Revenant whispered. Something deeper, older. It has been watching, waiting. Before Kane could respond, Revenant's core flared brightly one last time. Goodbye, General. Then, in a burst of energy, the AI dissolved into light, scattering into the wind like dying embers. Kane felt a strange emptiness settle over him. Revenant had been more than just an eye. It had been a friend. And now, it was gone. The cheers of the resistance continued, but Kane's mind was elsewhere. He turned his gaze to the horizon, where the ruins of Earth stretched endlessly, broken cities, shattered towers, ghosts of a world that once was. And yet, something felt wrong. Far below the surface, beneath the ruins and the wreckage, something stirred. In the endless dark, deep within the forgotten tunnels of old Earth, something moved. It was silent, patient, watching, waiting. The war was over, but the true battle had just begun.